You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
So excited you can join me here today on this Total Wellness Tuesday show, where we're going to be going over the invisible dangers of EMFs. And if you haven't heard of EMFs before, you will. You will be hearing this more and more in the media if they're willing to share with you the hidden dangers, the invisible dangers of electromagnetic frequencies. And the reason why I want to cover this today, it is number 6 on the toxic enemies that I write about in the work, in the rain barrel effect. But here's the deal, that a lot of people dealing with fatigue, fibromyalgia, gut-based issues, cancer, learning disabilities, pain, or mystery-based illnesses are at least suffering in some way from these electromagnetic frequencies. And the reason I'm saying this is that our bodies are literally 99+% energy. They're vibrating beings. And this is no longer the things of like new age medicine. This is actually quantum physics, quantum science explaining to you that your body, your DNA, everything about you is a vibrating being. And so when I look at that, I say, okay, if we are vibrating, if we are energetic beings and we introduce new frequencies to our body, they could either help us or harm us. And I've said this before, that I believe the future of medicine truly will be some type of energy, some type of frequency-based medicine. Because when our body is out of tune, like literally out of tune, if you think about it, we're going to be more susceptible to dis-ease in the body. Our body's not going to be as balanced. Now, we use amazing vitamins and amazing herbs and foods, but all of these things as well are feeding our body, are probably getting our body back into tune. So again, in the future, I believe that there's going to be a specific science. Now, are people doing it now? Sure. But the reason I don't use it in my practice is that it can't be replicated yet. And that's the problem, is that when people come to me or they run a functional medicine lab or whatever it might be, I need to be able to get them replicable results every single time. If you have gut issues, we're going to help you. You have autoimmune-based issues, we're going to help you. Learning disabilities, same exact thing. Mood, same thing. And the reason is we look at the whole person. We understand their story. They fill out a big application to work with, essentially, an intake. We lab test. We figure out what the deficiencies are. We figure out what the toxicities are. We remove those toxicities. We replace the deficiencies. We get them living an overall healthier lifestyle. And again, these are all things I talk about in the rain barrel effect. But what I want for you to understand is that can be replicated. I can teach that to other coaches, and that's what I'm doing right now. But you have to understand that all of this is in the now. Like, we can do this now. That's why it's not just me. It's thousands of other health practitioners able to help people no matter what they're suffering with. And that's because we can look into the human body. We can look inside. Besides blood work. Blood work is great. You should be running your blood work, but it's only one marker. I want to look at the saliva, what's going on there at a tissue level. Same with the urine. What does your body use? What's it excreting? Same with the hair. What is your body excreting through the hair? What do your electrolytes look like? What about heavy metals? All of those things matter, and we can look at all of those things right now. That's the amazing thing. But again, we have this thing called our vibrating being, our energetic being. And that's why when we see studies, and so I always want to look at this from the scientific perspective as well. So literally, I'm going to read them right now to you. American Academy of Pediatrics, Consumer Reports, who I'm not the hugest advocate of, but that's another story. The Cleveland Clinic, Harvard University, Columbia, Yale. I mean, these are some pretty phenomenal medical-based schools and pretty phenomenal research-based in journals. All of them have said that EMFs are widely recognized as a serious threat to human health in the 21st century. All of them have. They've all been stated as saying that. And when I look at this, I'm saying that, okay, over the past 3 years, over 190, this is the minimum, I'm just giving you the minimum of what I found, 190 scientists in over 39 countries have come together to warn people about the potential dangers of EMFs. And the reason we're saying potential, and we have scientific studies, is that this is all fairly new. Like a modem in every single house, a wireless modem. We'll get into all of this, Bluetooth. All of these things are fairly new. Like we're really just getting into it over the past decade. And yes, I know computers have been around for a couple decades now in most homes. But here's the deal. Not to this level. Everyone now is carrying with them a cell phone. Everyone is carrying with them or has in their home a wireless modem, probably a smart TV, probably a smart alarm clock, all of these different things. So here's what I need to do. Let me step back. The electromagnetic frequencies are the waves that you can't see being emitted from device to device, from cell phone tower to your phone, from different radio waves, all of the things that basically are wireless, and they're communicating to each other. So, for example, when we have an alarm clock beside our bed that also tells us the weather or is synced up with your cell phone, whatever it might be, well, that's a Bluetooth or a wireless-based signal that's being routed from your wireless modem or some other device. Now, those waves you can't see being emitted. Now, those waves, though, are also traveling through your body. I want to get to that in a minute because I've actually done some studies on my own to be able to look at the frequencies of these devices, and I think you'll find it pretty remarkable. But the other big thing is this, is that, so I'm a big advocate of looking outside of the U.S. as well for research. So a lot of people, they say, well, let's wait till the U.S. and our brilliant research looks at everything. But that's not the case with me. I like to look at countries in Europe, especially Germany. So I'm a big advocate of the amount of, like, the level of functional medicine and integrative medicine in Germany. Very, very remarkable. It's the only regret I have in my internship days is not being able to study in Germany. Now, I've been asked multiple times now to go over to Germany to actually speak and to be a part of some of these clinics, meaning that I could lead groups over there and all of that. And I think that I will do that in the future. For one, I would love to obviously, many reasons. I'd love to go to Germany. That's one, for selfish reasons. Number two, I'd love to lead a group so we can show people all these advances in technology and integrative medicine. And number three, so that I can learn. I want to see what the newest and the best out there is as well. So I know that I'll be over there. I did get to study in Europe, but Germany was not one of those locations. But in Germany, where the amazing thing is this, if they can help people stay healthy, the government pays less in actual healthcare costs. So that's remarkable, right? All of a sudden now, it's very flip-flopped from the United States. The United States says, well, healthcare is basically privatized, right? And a lot of these things. So if we can get people sick, well, then they have to spend more money, and that's on them. So to me, that's crazy, right? The health insurance companies, all these different things. Now, in other countries, if we can keep people healthy, there's an onus on that for the government too. It's because they have to spend less money. So they can actually pay for a lot of these integrative medicine and natural health-based modalities. Where in the U.S., we only pay for labs if people are sick or all those different types of things. That's why when we run functional medicine labs, you decide to purchase a functional medicine lab from equilibriumnutrition.com or one of the sites, you're paying out of pocket. And the reason you're paying out of pocket is that the U.S., you only pay when you're sick. The insurance only pays when you're sick, which is crazy. Like, your job is to find out what the hidden underlying root causes are from where you're not feeling well. And no one's willing to pay for that because they don't pay for health care. They pay for sick care. It's really backwards. Very, very strange. But anyway, in France, Germany, Spain, the governments have actually issued warnings. Now, I don't know how this is going to work out, but they've issued warnings that these Wi-Fi and all the Wi-Fi and the computers and the iPads that they're bringing into schools could potentially be causing developmental issues, fertility-based issues, hormonal issues, which I'll get into in a moment, and learning disabilities in children. So really remarkable to look at all these things. And so this isn't just me, and I wouldn't call myself an expert in EMFs. I am someone that studied the topic, and it's part of like the repertoire of what I do in my functional medicine practice. But I'm going to be bringing on an expert guest in EMFs and really who's done a lot of deep research. I was interviewed for an EMF-based summit that I'll be sharing with you in probably a couple months, I believe it will be coming out. But I wanted to get this to you now. And here's why. The EMFs we know are changing our body at a DNA-based level. So when you think of that, our DNA is what's replicating every time basically our cells are replenishing and renewing. And we've talked about that before because of the telomere length, right? So we're talking about telomere replication, the telomere testing, all of those specific things. And we look at that, we're saying, okay, if our DNA is damaged, what could happen? Well, cell signaling is a big thing, but also cancer, right? If we have damaged DNA, it can lead to cancer as well. It can also lead to reproductive issues in that next generation. Like, how do we know in 10 years from now, 20 years ago, how this will affect our children? I mean, it's really, it's mind-bending when you think about it. And when I look at just one piece of research out of Germany, and this is in 2004, it showed that just 24 hours of EMF exposure, again, depending on the level, but 24 hours of EMF exposure induced more DNA damage than 1,600 chest x-rays. Really, really remarkable. I mean, when you think about that, it's disturbing that no one ever talks about that. That it can be equivalent to low-level radiation from getting x-rays. It's just unbelievable to me to look at that. So let's talk about right now why I believe that this EMF-based problem is being compounded. And so we're calling it electrosmog. If you're like me or I live in the city. So I live in the city in Boston. Now around me, I live in a condo. There are 12 other units in my condo. Okay, we live in a brownstone in a condo. It's beautiful, right? It's beautiful, live in the city and just walk right out your door and you have all these great things. Without a doubt, it is fantastic. My wife and I love it. My 2 kids love it. My dog loves it. Dog park right behind us. All those great things. But here's the difference. When we're in our condo, there's at least, I'm just trying to think within 100 feet. Within 100 feet, I would say that there's at least 200 other condos. At least. And each of those have their own modems. They have their own smart TVs. They have all their own wireless-based devices. We are basically in this electro soup or this electrosmog, as I called it in my book. And again, when you look at that, your body, your DNA, your energetic being is just being bombarded with all of this electromagnetic smog or frequencies running through your body. And there are certain people, they're not balanced in the first place. I would actually say that they're more of the Vata body type or they're more of the ectomorphic body type. But again, anyone can suffer, even if you're genetic, your genotype or your Prakriti is not a Vata or ectomorph. It doesn't mean that you can't be suffering from that type of imbalance. And in these types of people, we see an electromagnetic hypersensitivity, EHS. Again, I speak about this in Toxic Enemy number 6 in my book. And here's the deal. Some people are going to be more susceptible. They're going to feel more of the fatigue, more of the lethargy, the low mood. They're going to feel the joint pain, the gut-based issues, the migraines, right? All of these specific things. And so what I want to look at is, are you suffering from those specific things? And how can we make that better? Well, one of the big things, one of these reasons why it's being exacerbated, of course, living in these densely populated areas, but also a lot of us have heavy metals in our body and we don't even know it. So unless you run a urine-based test or you run a hair tissue mineral analysis to look for heavy metals, you're not going to know. And heavy metals, why am I bringing that up? Because you become more of a beacon, more of a lightning rod when you have more heavy metals in your body. And that's because why? Well, heavy metals are going to attract more of those frequencies. Literally, metal has its own vibratory-based mechanism. So if you have more metals in your body than the person next to you, you're most likely going to pick up more of those frequencies because it has a charge. It has something to latch onto. I always use the lightning rod analogy, meaning like let's say you have a 15-foot lightning rod going straight up. And during a lightning storm in your neighborhood, since that lightning rod's going up towards the sky, it's metal, it's most likely going to be the thing that gets struck. And so if you have more metals in your body, meaning like you have silver amalgams in your mouth, and we know that they're not silver, that's a nice way to talk about it. They look silver, but it's mercury based. It might have other metals in there like aluminum. Well, those are electric beacons. Those are metal beacons in your mouth for more frequencies. Now, if you have multiple metals in your body, meaning like you have a titanium hip or different titanium knee, a replacement. You have screws in your body. You have metal in your mouth, and you have different metals like gold, and some might be mercury. Well, those are going to be even more potentially detrimental. So again, we've talked about that on previous shows about mercury amalgams in the mouth, and we've talked about what to do about that. We're not going to talk about that today, but this can make you more susceptible as well. Now, I want to start to give some tips though, all right? Because I want to start to create some optimal living conditions where you can begin to greatly defend yourself against these EMFs. So even if you're not suffering right now, well, there's going to be less chance for the cancer, less chance for the headaches and migraines and low mood and just zapping your body. So I have to give you two more tips. I really do. So one is that they found that women who put their cell phone like in their bra or sports bra or anything like that they had a higher incidence of breast cancer. It's just so important when you look at that. Same with Bluetooth. If you wear a Bluetooth headset, you're talking to that Bluetooth headset, it's right beside your brain. It's like literally connected to it, higher level of brain-based cancer. All right, so really important that we look at that. My other big one I have to give you is this, and that's why we're going to start in the bedroom with this EMF protection, is that people who slept with an EMF-based device next to them or in the bedroom, all right, close enough to affect them, had lower levels of melatonin, which means, and again, if you have lower levels of melatonin, you can extrapolate a few things here. One, you're going to have eventually more issues with disease, more issues with recovery, rejuvenation, and potentially cancer. And it's because melatonin has been inversely directly related with cancer. So inversely related, meaning that the lower the melatonin, the higher levels of cancer. The better levels of melatonin, the lower levels of cancer. Those people who work the night shift have a higher level of cancer, but also a higher level of early mortality, which means they die at a younger age, typically 7 years less than the rest of the population. And this has been well studied. So, I mean, it's so important to look at, right? Well, with melatonin too, if you don't have enough melatonin production, you're not going to be able to shut down cortisol. Higher levels of cortisol leads to dementia, Alzheimer's. Lower levels of testosterone leads to estrogen dominance in women. I mean, these are important things to look at. And to me, honestly, this is new. This is new over the last 5 years to me. It really is. And that's because I had so much else to worry about. I wasn't even like looking into EMFs. It's like, okay, one more thing to look at. But when I looked at it, I understood like, okay, there's only so much I can do. I'm not going to get rid of my cell phone. I'm not getting rid of my computers. I'm not getting rid of all these things. I need to use them, but how can I best protect myself? So here's where I started. You're in your bedroom, hopefully for 8 hours a night, all right? So that's a big part of your day. I always say, deal with what you can deal with first. You can certainly deal with your bedroom and your kid's bedroom and parents and all that, all right? So again, look at this. In the bedroom, 8 hours. This is what we need to do. Well, first off the bat, I really recommend purchasing an EMF meter. I have no, I don't know what you would say, relationship or affiliation with any of these meters. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this today. Go to stevencabral.com/893. I'm going to put in all of the different devices. I'll put in the hair tissue mineral analysis to test for heavy metals. I'll put all of those things in today's show notes, stevencabral.com/893. The reason I'm not going to mention any names today is that these show notes will live on forever. So we've done 893 shows. And in all of those shows, especially my Friday reviews, I give you recommendations for EMF-based products or for my favorite, like I did a couple weeks ago, vegan-based ice cream, or my favorite, technology or gadgets or lab tests or supplements or whatever. And I might find a better one a year from now. It doesn't mean the one a year previous was bad. It's not bad. It just means there are changes in our world. And as they get better, I want to bring you the best of the best. So if I don't name it, well, then I can go back and change it. That's why I did that with the rain barrel effect. Everybody who's read the book, The Rain Barrel Effect, knows that I put only one link in the whole book, not 100 different links like a lot of people do. I wanted to make your life easy. And every month or 2 months, I'll update that page. So if you bought the book about 2 months ago when it came out, I've actually updated the page since then. I'll continue to do that. All right. So at 893, you'll find out all of those notes. I'm going to put in 2 to 3 different EMF meters. So I'm going to put in a low price, a moderate price, and then a higher price. And you can choose. They're anywhere from like $40 or so, I believe, up to a couple $100s. And they're all great. I started with the lower price one, and that was great. I mean, then I got the other one, which just measures more fields, more radiation, electricity, magnetism, all of those different things. So what you do is you use this meter, and you can actually go around your house, and it's almost like a stud finder. If you've ever used a stud finder, it starts to glow and then beep when the EMFs get too high. And this was completely insane. It's almost like Ghostbusters when you go into your house. I don't know if anybody watched Ghostbusters. I guess you'd have to be a certain age to remember that. So what I said is this. I'm going to go around. I'm going to have to figure out what this is and where the EMFs are coming from. And what I found was that I had an alarm clock that was putting off higher levels of EMF, and it was only like 2 feet from my head. But the biggest surprises were this. I have to give you this. The biggest surprises were my 2 girls, and this is going back, and they were much younger at the time. They're how old? 3 and 5 now, turning 4 and 6. And they were young. This is probably like 1 and 3 when we were doing this. And their baby monitor and their white noise machine, which were right near their bed and their crib because they're in the same room, was unbelievably high. Higher than cell phone, higher than iPad, higher than my computer. They were higher than my alarm clock. And that's disturbing because their small, tiny little bodies are going to be affected by it much more than a larger adult. So I found that really disturbing. And even if you never use an EMF meter, keep those at least 5 feet to 8 feet away from your children's beds. No electronic-based gear in those beds at all. So what we did was we still use the baby monitor. We still use the white noise machine. But what we did was we put those far away to the other side of the room. Now we could test it and we could see, okay, about 3 to 4 feet away, those EMFs went away. Really, within 1 to 2 feet, they were exceptionally high, like off the chart. It was terrible. I mean, it's awful. And it didn't make any sense to me because those are plugged into the wall. But still, those EMFs are real. They're real, okay? You can test it. They've done this testing for decades with microwaves. So it's the same type of testing. This isn't new testing. We have new devices that we're testing it on. Okay. Other big ones that you may not think about are just electrical outlets in general. Like, is your head basically on top of an electrical outlet? Well, if it is, please try not to at least plug anything into it. All right. That's a big one. You can get deep into this, meaning that you can literally put power kill switches in the bedroom so that it turns off all the electricity to the bedroom. You can put up what are called EMF blankets, which blanket out EMFs all around you, depending on like how sensitive you are. I work with a lot of people who are quite sensitive. Again, this is not, people ask me like, oh, how deep do you get into this in your practice? Well, it's just one of the things that we sometimes talk about. But, it's not all of it because the body has to be balanced from many different levels. And I believe when the body's strong, it can buffer a lot of these things. But I still do what I can, meaning like, okay, my alarm clock is now much further away, right? Much further away from me. If I have any electronic devices, they're not on Bluetooth. There's no Wi-Fi in my room. Nothing you can do at night is turn off your wireless router. That's an easy thing to do. So you're not going to get those frequencies as well. If you have a repeater in your house, well, you can keep maybe your regular one on, but you're going to turn off your repeater in your house for the Wi-Fi. A big one, and I know that this might be challenging for you, but a big one is the metal coils in people's beds, okay? You wouldn't believe it. I'd be testing the whole room, and I'm like, okay, like all the power's off. And then I get to the mattress, and the mattress is giving off EMFs for one of my girls that didn't have metal coils in there. And it dawns me the metal coils are picking up EMFs from probably like the condo next door or outside or whatever it might be. And so that was disturbing in itself. So I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do for this? Well, eventually we just bought. I couldn't do it right away. So I just kind of like, told myself to chill out, relax. And then what I was able to do, and again, you can buy EMF blankets for the bed if you want. But that just basically means it masks it or contains it. But what we did was we bought mattresses without metal coils in them. And now you can actually test this again with an EMF meter. You can even go to a mattress store if you want to do this. But you'll notice that there are no EMFs coming from that because there's no metal in the bed. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. Your job is to only do what you can do and not really worry about all the massive things. One other thing I have to add before I give you just a couple quick tips that I've actually given on previous podcasts is that if you have a smart meter on your house, basically this is a meter that tests your electricity utilization, and it can test other things as well. But what that allows it is for it to beam it from house to house and then back to your, I don't know what it is, but your city that takes your electric usage. Okay, here's the deal. That is a very powerful unit that's giving off massive amounts of EMFs and radiation. Now, a lot of people who sleep on the first floor of their house, or maybe their children do, and that's outside their window, tremendous amounts of EMF and radiation that has to be removed or they can't sleep near it. Okay, so two things. One, you could ask your electrical company to put an analog one on instead so that you're not part of that Wi-Fi based device, and they will do that. Or you can use called an EMF shield, and you can put that over that on at least the back side, because if you put it over the front side, it won't actually beam the information back to your electric provider. But you want to make sure that you want to be careful of that, because if you're in a row of houses, and especially if you're downstream, you're the one that people are beaming to, that's even more EMF. So really be careful about those smart meters. And again, all of this stuff you're able to look up, all of this stuff you're able to verify, right? Because you can do the information for yourself. I want to be a great sounding board. I want to be someone that is able to get this information to you. And then you're going to do, if you're ready for it, because you might already be overwhelmed. So I just at least want to bring it to your attention. You're able to do what you're able to do. So for me, I moved the baby monitors. I moved the white noise machines away from my girls' beds. We did the coil-free mattresses. Obviously, we did free mattresses for those more toxins. And the other thing that we did for my girls is that they don't get to use iPads and TV and all that jazz on a daily basis. What they use their iPads for are for longer trips. Let's say we're going to be on a 2-3 hour car trip, okay? Or we're going to be on a flight. Like, again, we've gone with them multiple times to Hawaii and California. Those are long trips. We get them their iPads. But what we did, because I tested everything, is they have these EMF cases for iPads, and they actually work because you can test it with your EMF meter. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to link up the iPad cases that I use for my girls, and we just have the iPad minis for them, and it works great. And so, again, that's like one more thing. Remember, they're keeping them on their laps. So important. Like, they're radiating their internal organs if they don't have these EMF blockers. Another thing is, I don't use, again, like I'm just like basically, let's say from 7 o'clock to 5, 6 o'clock, I'm around computers and I'm in it, I'm in it. So when I look at that, I try never to use my laptop and all that at night. But my wife, like she'll be on her laptop sometimes at night doing a little bit of work, whatever it might be. And so what I bought was one of those, again, I don't want to name the company, but it's a nice flat, looks like a wood board. But what it does is it blocks the EMFs from going then down when she has it on her lap. Really, really important. So again, these are easy things to do. You don't have to buy them all at once. But what I recommend is to do the things that you're around the most. Like every once in a while, you put your laptop on your lap. Like if that's you, okay, no big deal. Put some magazines there, put something there. But again, you might put your money towards something else. Now, if you can do everything, of course, then you do everything. And I'm not a referrer for any of these items, but these are all items that will help you in the long run. If you're someone that uses a Bluetooth headset, get rid of it. Use the ear tubes, the headphone ear tubes, or use something like that that's going to be better for a wired-based device for speaking on a cell phone. That's what I do. I know a lot of people right now, I haven't tested them yet. I do need to test them for the AirPods to see how high they are in EMFs as well. But again, all of these things need to be checked and really looked at. So I'll keep it at that for today. I think that's the best thing to do. I'm going to link everything up, the iPad cases, the EMF testers, the meters. What else can I link up? Yeah, the iPads, the baby monitor type things, the HTMA-based testing. I'll put all that up today. Just go to stephencabral.com/893. I know it was a lot today. A lot of people, this is the first time hearing that. I don't want to overwhelm you. That's not my intention, but these are things that we cannot overlook. Because if you are suffering from energy fatigue, fibromyalgia, joint pain, headaches, migraines, like overall irritability, especially when you're at home, when you spend a lot of time in that one place, this could be a contributing factor. Electrosensitivity, electromagnetic sensitivity, hypersensitivity is a real thing, and a lot of people are dealing with it. The problem is just not everyone is dealing with it, as we know, so people just kind of brush it off. It's a real thing. I want to make sure that you're able to defend yourself against this, especially in the future as we have more and more of these devices around us. Thank you so much for tuning into another Cabral Concept. I appreciate all of your listens. And as always, if this show is helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone it could serve. Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests, or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.